What's up, guys? Welcome to Voicey here. This is your Christmas-loving host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady with the little bonus from r/Today I Fudged Up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story's called, Not Only Have I Never Worked in the Store, I Quit This Chain Years Ago, and a floozy shouldn't floozy shame in the retail justice system. The people are represented by two separate but equally important groups. The managers, who investigate customer complaints, and the IDontWorkHereLady civilians who just want to get through their day. These are their stories, with some exaggeration because just the facts are rather humdrum. Dun dun! Circa both sides of 1987. In high school and college, I worked in a store that was then a major local New York City area supermarket chain that is, alas, no more. Anyway, for the first few years, I had the same front-end manager, until she was transferred away to another store in Queens. Wasn't that upset, except her replacement was a bimbo who started screwing with my hours. We were union and I was under the old contract where double time was basic Sunday pay. Fast forward 4 to 5 years, college is done, I'm off in the corporate world. My Wally World retail job way back in the rearview mirror. One day I'm doing boyfriend-girlfriend things with my future wife when she told me her mother needed a few things that weren't available at her local supermarket. So we stop in the Wally World store near her mother. Her mother didn't have a car as she didn't need one. New York City. Grab a cart, walk past the customer service desk, and someone yells, "Hey, LP!" Turns out a department head I worked with was now working at the store. While catching up, she tells me that former manager is there now too, but had stepped away for lunch. With my PTSD of my Wally World years behind me, I told her to page me if former manager comes back in the next 5-10 minutes. Now, the store in this chain was mostly laid out the same way, so I could take very educated guesses as to what aisles to find whatever was on the list. Several minutes later, I am paged by former manager to come to the courtesy desk. The voice. Amazing what can trigger PTSD, though I didn't realize it at the moment. Go to the desk, say hello, introduce my future wife to the manager who contributed to my PTSD, though in fairness, it was mostly the customers. After a minute or two, we say goodbye, walk away, and continue shopping. Future wife gives me my next item on the list, and I respond that it's probably near item X, which I had seen earlier in aisle number whatever. Oops. The C was angry that day, my friends. Like an old man trying to send back soup in a deli, I got about 50 feet out, and suddenly, the great beast appeared before me. I would tell you she was 10 stories high even if she was a foot. Karen. It started out nicely enough. Karen asked me what aisle item B was in. I had no clue. But after a quick scan at the overhead signs, I told her it was probably near aisle number whatever. When she asked why I wasn't sure, I told her I didn't work there. "But I saw you talking to the managers at the desk and helping this woman," pointing at my GF. I explained I worked at a different store in the chain with them years before. And while I didn't know where things were specifically, I still remembered how things were generally laid out. Now, before I continue, at the time my wife was in her mid-20s, and it was summer, so she was wearing shorts and a tee. Nothing provocative. My wife was a very modest person, in public. But I guess to an older woman, especially now that our son is now in college, and I myself think that the co-eds I see at my son's university, who dress in a similar manner as my wife did in the warmer months, dress the same. It could seem provocative. So, looking at my future wife, she replied, "I could see why you'd rather help her than me. Well, she is out of your league, so don't waste your time, girl, unless that fat frick is paying for everything." Wink, wink. She said a few other things about my future wife that was equally insulting. Now, I was always the first to admit that I got a hit out of my league when I met my wife. We had met in class and had bonded over trashing our retail jobs, and how it sucked to lose our fathers to heart attacks in our college years. Our nerd personalities were similar enough, and we both wanted the same things out of life, so we started dating. We had been dating for a while at this time, long enough that I was starting to think about buying a ring, which I did a few months later. Now back to our story. My wife was about to say something, but I gave her a look that said, "Please, let me." All I ever wanted to tell a customer in that chain came out. Well, not really, but I want to remember it that way. I'm a New Yorker, and especially in those days, we were known to express our opinions when upset. Having been raised by two parents who grew up in Brooklyn in the 1940s and 50s, I was pretty good at cursing someone out without actually cursing someone out. PTSD time. Before I go further, I was never diagnosed except by my wife, who wondered why I was still having nightmares about that job almost 20 years later. All the shiats I had taken over the years came bubbling up, and boy did it feel good to get that out of my system. The details are blurry, but after ripping that lady a new one for implying my girlfriend was a harlot and questioned her ethical background as to why she would jump to such a conclusion, implying that she was projecting over her, putting out to get favors when she was younger. I then asked her how she was able to function in life without listening to what someone who was actually trying to help her was telling her. Oh, and by the way, I don't work here, lady! Or something similar. She looked at me in disgust and headed, as I was about to discover, to the front desk. We were done with her mother's shopping and headed to the registers. After hearing some yelling and figuring out what was going on, we of course walked by the courtesy desk to hear the lady complaining about the rude employee who cursed and laughed at her as he would rather help out his floozy girlfriend. That is, when the lady noticed me and screamed, "That's him!" My former manager told her, "He doesn't work here, lady. He did work with me at Warzone 51, but that was years ago, and up until today I haven't seen him since. He and I were just catching up when you saw us talking." I guess Lady Karen brought that up when trying to describe me. That didn't satisfy her, and she demanded to see the store manager. This is where I threw former manager a bone. I told her my girlfriend and I would be happy to give our versions to the store manager, including how the lady had harassed and insulted us. The other former coworker, who the lady didn't see me talking to earlier, said she saw, probably not, but we were friends back in the day and she knew I wasn't the type to be overly rude, the lady harassing us and was about to call security to escort the lady out. Probably also a misstatement, before the lady left us. She then asked my way out of my league girlfriend if she wanted her to call the police for the injuries she received after the verbal assault. Anticlimactic finish, the lady stormed out and I gave my former manager my current phone number if the lady caused her any further trouble, so I could explain that former manager had done nothing wrong. Never got a call, don't know what happened after. But dang, did it feel good to be a retail gangster for a few minutes. Well, that was a good story. I did enjoy it, but dang, that last bit really, waterworks, man. Somebody cutting onions? This story's called, "You don't work here, but that doesn't mean you can't get fired." So I've always watched stories on VoiceyHere and not us, and decided to share my experience. This story may also fit in r/tales from call centers, but let me know what you guys think. I'm very new still, and this is my first post, so if I did something incorrectly, let me know. The background. This happened around late 2013 to early 2014. I used to work at a telecommunication company in the Caribbean, taking calls mostly in relation to cell and internet service. I usually work the graveyard shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. This is when there is less traffic, and as a result, this is the time a lot of upgrades may be done to the network that may affect persons using the service. Of course, this means everyone will call into the center to complain about service being down, but we can usually advise them on a time when it will be back up for internet services. It's best to do a restart of the device too. We will also gather a sample of information just to ensure that it is the network upgrade that is affecting the customer and not something else. What plan they are on, what type of phone, their location, etc. On to the story! One night, one of these aforementioned issues happens. Local network upgrade to patch some lingering issues. The internet service may be down in our hometown for about 2 hours between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. We put up the advisory on the greeting you get when calling the center, but of course, people still want to hear from a live person. No problem. I get into a rhythm of my usual customer service greeting, hearing the issue, asking their location and handset type, then advise them of the upgrade underway and ask for their patience. After a few minutes of doing this, I get a call from an irate man asking why his internet isn't working. This is not out of the ordinary in and of itself, so I ask his current location, and he replies, "Downstairs." I am a bit puzzled, but I thought maybe he's telling me where he is in his home, so I clarify. "I'm sorry for the mix-up, could you advise me where in the island you are located?" He replies, "Are you deaf? I said downstairs. I'm the security downstairs." I took a pause, as it took me a while to process this information. The security on our building is outsourced, but they do have a computer at the station that gets the feed of upgrades as a banner going across the screen. Also, they aren't allowed to be on their phones while at work. I said, "Just to clarify, you are the security on duty tonight?" at our building? And you are calling customer service?" The security replies,
"Finally you catch up. When is this gonna be fixed? My girl is at home and I need to talk with her right now."
Now, I don't like to be mistreated over the phone as much as the next guy, so there was a bit of sarcasm when I asked, "When does it say the issue will be resolved on the monitor downstairs?" At this point, if I listened closely enough, I could hear his blood boil over the phone.
"Look, man, I can't wait till 4 a.m. to talk with her. What if she's cheating? I need this fixed." No!
At this point, I have had enough. I remind him the call is being recorded, so it may be a good idea to not be a jerkwad over the phone, and that he should be on guard, and his phone should be in his locker and not being used to call customer service. He proceeds to hiss his teeth and mumble something under his breath and end the call. I decide to go on break and head downstairs because maybe he will be different one-on-one in real life. I take the elevator and go to the security desk, which, what a surprise, he isn't there. I go outside and walk around the building and find a security at the steps. I'm not sure if he's the one I spoke to because there are usually 2 to 3 on duty, but then he comes over to me.
"Hey, you work upstairs, right?"
I tell him yes and show him my ID.
"Great, can you get my phone online? I need to get past the system upgrade BS."
I reply, that isn't possible, dude. Look, my phone is offline too. I show him there's a no data signal on my phone and tell him he's just gonna have to wait. I then ask, "Hey, are you the guy that called in a while ago? I would recommend not doing that. I wouldn't want you to get in trouble." I'm being as friendly as possible and just passing advice from one person to another. I then see his eyes go red.
"Hey man, what are you gonna do? Fire me? I don't work for you."
Insert poo-eating grin. "No, you don't. But your security company works for us. So, in essence, your boss is our company's employee." A small sense of realization seemed to have taken hold at this point. He asked me not to say anything, and me being as non-confrontational as possible, agreed. Fast forward to the next night when I come into work and, lo and behold, there is a new security at the desk. I go to my manager and ask what's up, and he told me he overheard the phone call and it was randomly pulled for scoring. And then it just so happens it got him into trouble. It went as far as the building manager going to change security companies on a whole, but in the end, they decide just to part ways with that security officer in order to make amends. I kind of felt bad, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, each interaction you go through, no matter how insignificant it may seem to you, may play a big impact on someone else. Alright guys, here's just a little bit of advice. If you're freaking out at like 2 in the morning, if your girlfriend's cheating on you, and you want to call her just to make sure she's not, it doesn't sound like the most healthy relationship, you know? I'm not saying the girl couldn't have been cheating, or I'm not saying the girl was cheating, okay? But like, from what the story told, a guy needs to chill. This story's called, "Today I Forked Up by Almost Choking to Death on a Piece of Hot Roast Lamb, Alone in My Apartment." Today I forked up. Really freaking annoyed at myself, but also very grateful I'm alive. I cook a beautiful piece of minted roast lamb shoulder. I didn't wait for it to cool enough because it smelled so good. I cut off a nice big piece with plenty of fat on it, put it in my mouth, and immediately felt it was too hot. Rather than take the lamb out, I opted for the mouth open inhale air trick to cool the lamb. But I messed up and inhaled too hard, and the lamb sucked into my throat and wedged across my airway. I freeze. I know it doesn't feel good. I have air in my lungs, but not a full lungful. I try to breathe out to gently see how large the lamb is. It's really jammed. Some air can pass, but it's a small gap. Crap, I need to breathe in. I do slowly, and the lamb sucks in tighter. I feel it move, and like that, I realize I cannot breathe at all, and I have no air in my lungs. I have always been a guy who likes to spend time alone, but for the first time in my life, I realized it's dangerous to be alone. I'm alone. I'm about to die. My life didn't flash before me. I was picturing myself dead on the kitchen floor when my girlfriend gets home from her work trip the next day. I'm trying everything to stay calm and blow out any air in my lungs. Nothing. I slam my back into the concrete wall of my living room, hard, but there's no air in my lungs to dislodge it. I'm very aware I have maybe 10 seconds before I begin to pass out. I'm in full panic but doing everything to stay calm and look for a solution. I grab a wooden spoon by the head, one with a thin round handle, and I'm gonna jam it down my throat to try and dislodge it. But I feel like I'm starting to pass out. I think of doing a massive body slam onto the tiles of my kitchen floor. It's now or never. But feeling the extreme lack of air, instinctively, I take a massive last gasp for air. That is like the most painful reversed dry reach, sucking my lungs inwards. Then bang. Just when I'm certain it's all over, the sucking inwards pressure dislodges the food, with an explosive noise and the sensation I will never forget. I went from knowing with certainty I was about to die, to a feeling of relief that no experience I could ever have would surpass. I briefly worry the lamb is in my lung, but somehow it doesn't feel that way, and I can feel a warm sensation in my stomach. I'm safe. I sit down on the floor. My ears are ringing so loud, I am almost deaf. Adrenaline is at peak. Slowly, I hear the TV noise start to come back. My hands are shaking, and I take long, slow inhales of beautiful oxygen. I love breathing more than ever before. That experience, while it was happening, and the immediate minutes after it, were utterly surreal. I had the overwhelming feeling that I kind of did die. It's a very strange feeling, but it's like the minutes after were free. Like bonus minutes I'd won or something. I can't really put it into words. I think it's because the last few seconds, I was so sure that there was no way out. Slowly, I start to think about my life, had it ended that day, and how people would take it. I picture my brother, a vegan, telling people forever that a piece of meat killed his brother, or my girlfriend and sister talking about how I always ate too fast, and they both had told me to eat slower. Crazy experience. Don't think I can eat the lamb. Maybe tomorrow. Okay guys, before anything, I need to let you guys know, if you're alone and you're choking, basically gut punch yourself. Okay, so like the space between your rib cage and your belly button, like take your fist and then take your other hand and just kind of like freaking just gut punch yourself, okay? Or better yet, if there's like a table or a counter or something, just kind of like thrust yourself into it. And like, you know, that space between your rib cage and your belly button, okay? And that should dislodge any food stuck in your trachea, which is like your breathing tube. But wow, that is a terrifying story to read. I've had a similar experience before. I mean, I'm sure we all have, where we're like choking for like a second, but we get it out. But goodness, that would be terrifying. That would be a horrible way to die, you know? Food you spent forever making, and you just die because you can't wait for it to cool down. Like, it's such a sad way to go, you know? Like, I've seen people who died from choking on a grape. Like, 50 years of life, you know, working to get where you are, taken out by a grape. Like, it's a crazy realization to have, you know? How, like, at all times we are prone to dying, you know? So many things could go wrong at any given second, you know? Like, your phone could explode in your face right now and you're dead. There's nothing you can do. Oh, man. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.